Chapter 25. The look on Adeena's face was something coaches of winning athletes like to see before the big game. Absolute confidence, fierce pride, the need for revenge. She sat on stage with the Duncan cello, a wooden conduit connecting two incarnations of one musical soul. The fact that her mother had brought the precious instrument to Adeena felt even more exhilarating. It filled her with a purpose she had never experienced. We might all go to jail, but we'll go as a family. Adeena clutched her bow like a sword being readied against an invading army. Friedrich Lang sprang onto the stage to thunderous applause, and she knew it was time for battle. Lang acknowledged the warm welcome, bounding onto the conductor's podium. He seemed to bask in the adoration of the audience, primed into a frenzy by the NAC's unrelenting campaign promoting tonight's musical premiere. She closed her eyes, trying to harness the energy of her pounding heart. She felt her grandmother watching her, smiling, urging her on. Adeena knew she couldn't let Margaret Rose down this time. Tara cursed herself as she shifted the Audi into second, racing towards the National Arts Center just blocks away. Philip had played her masterfully. She had relinquished control to her 15-year-old self, getting swept away with him in her office like a dewy-eyed teenager, which was obviously part of the plan to keep her occupied. He had done his job well. There was a spark that had seemed so real. He was just role-playing, nothing more. Within seconds of just turning the corner at the Chateau Laurier and blasting towards the NAC, the lights of a police cruiser painted her face blue. She had to push Philip out of her mind. It was time to put an end to foolish games and foolish feelings. Adeena glanced at Walter beside her with the other cellists and at Maria near the front of the violin section. They smiled weakly, shaking their heads with helpless looks of resignation. It seems they had accepted the situation and were prepared to let Lang get away with his game of grand theft music. Adeena, however, was not. Lang tapped his baton on the conductor's rail, and all 2,000 patrons of Southam Hall fell into hushed silence. The opening piano notes of the ancient score began slowly on the orchestra's polished Steinway. Adeena waited patiently as the full force of the musical storm to come began with gentle harmonic eddies swirling innocently from the stage. Tara and two burly police officers busted past the elegantly dressed NAC ushers. "Police! Let us in!" she yelled, as the officers flashed their badges to the startled ushers and marched past them towards Southam Hall. "Hurry, before they start!" Tara urged the officers as they ran down the red-carpeted stairs outside the hall. They descended quickly to the bottom, reaching the doors that opened onto the first row in front of the stage. As they got to the bottom and yanked open the heavy doors, Tara heard the music begin. Adeena's bow touched the strings of the ancient cello and began lovingly to coax out the music within. She felt the vibrations in her bones as the mystic tones rose in melancholy exultation. She was one with the bow and the cello, and with her music. Clouds were growing in her mind, and she was getting swept away as the rest of the cello section joined her lead, mesmerizing every ear in Southam Hall. Even Lang seemed moved as he gazed upon Adeena, already lost in her own world. The stage right doors sprang open and Tara led the police officers into Southam Hall. The audience buzzed with the unexpected intrusion as she marched towards the stage, looking for Adeena and the Duncan cello. Tara was frantic to catch her red-handed with the stolen instrument. Finally, Tara spotted her and raised a hand to point Adeena out to the officers. With Tara's hand still raised, the music washed over her. It seemed to push her backwards. It only took seconds for her to absorb the power that originated from the stage. She spotted Adeena, eyes closed, completely absorbed. Tara hesitated. A shiver of emotion ran through Tara, and she thought of Philip in her arms. The music was powerful, unrelenting, and she remained frozen in front of the stage. Just as the first officer was about to advance, Tara put her arm out to hold him back. The hot lights of the stage were fading away as Adeena continued to play. Time was carrying her away, and the other instruments faded to nothing. It was only her now, playing alone in the blackness of a room she recognized as the one she had performed in at Kinnaird Castle. A few candles and a single hearth provided the only light and warmth. No matter. Adeena was playing the only way she could, with complete devotion. An aging woman with a gray-haired male companion holding her hand watched intently from their chairs. Adeena's lyrics ached for release, and she felt the need to comply. Tara watched spellbound as Adeena, trance-like, rose from her chair in front of one of the microphones set up to amplify the instruments. She picked it up, and, eyes closed, began to sing. Lang in the conductor's podium looked confused as Adeena's voice filled the hall, powerful, clear, and in perfect resonance with the orchestra. Gone is my heart without you. Now I am lost once again. Praying for life that grows within, all I can ask is when. When will the sword meet the sky to show where I belong? Forever I will wait for you, even after I'm gone. Tara had never heard anything as moving as the song pouring out from the sister she had guided for so long. Adeena's voice enraptured the entire hall, and Tara felt herself fighting her own emotions. She looked behind her at the audience who watched in awe, some with mouths open, others holding the hands of loved ones beside them. John St. Clair had not expected old feelings could be so easily reignited. St. Clair listened to the music of Catherine, his new wife's niece. He had heard so much about her, but had discarded the praise as patriotic exaggeration. But her music was stirring long dormant feelings within him. She reminded him of why he had tried to stop the Union that fateful day so long ago as a young man in Edinburgh, and why he was joining the Jacobite cause once again as an old man. As Catherine's words echoed through Kinnaird and she stopped playing, he held his breath a moment before shaking his head in wonder. His eyes were moist. "It's true, then, every word your aunt told me," he said, approaching the young woman who conjured such emotion out of wood and string, and whose timeless voice seemed to emanate from another world. "You inspire men, even against their own common sense." Catherine bowed her head. Margaret embraced her niece. "My husband, the Master of Sinclair, never understood why we need you. I've always known it. But alas," she said with a wink, "he's only a man." St. Clair laughed, but he knew there was truth to what she said. "Catherine, how can we help you?" Catherine brightened. "I need to find the score. The music I just performed for you. My brother, the captain, has hidden it away in the keep, I believe. I can't explain why, but I must find it and get it away from here. I need to get it published in Edinburgh, and in London too." Lady Margaret seemed puzzled, but she didn't hesitate. "Your brother is on his way to Kinnaird as we speak, with a proclamation supporting his claim to drive me from my home for good. Your uncle, the Earl Carnegie, would roll in his grave if that passes. We must act quickly." St. Clair stepped forward. "Where is the keep? I will find the score for you, Lady Catherine, but tell me first, why is it so urgent?" Catherine fixed her gaze upon him with a force he had rarely encountered from a woman. "It will change our history. It may not return the kingdom, or even this place, but it may help save all of us." Adeena watched as Lady Margaret scurried away with her husband. She knew it was a long shot, but if they could find the score and get it published, the lost music would find its place in history. Was it possible to change future events? Or would she simply watch as time flowed down the path already traveled? A clattering of hooves interrupted her analysis. The castle doors sprang open. She recognized the man who stood in the castle's entranceway. The captain, Catherine's brother, Sir James Carnegie. He drew back upon seeing her. "You dare return to this place," he shouted, "after you betrayed your king and your country." "I've betrayed no one," Adeena replied. She needed to distract him, get him away from here. "I have come to seek your counsel, brother. Can I show you something?" The captain eyed her suspiciously. "You think me a fool, sister? No. You will come with me to Lord Grayson. He will sign the orders to lock you away for aiding the rebels." "She is not going anywhere. And you, sir, are trespassing," Lady Margaret announced, descending the stairs towards them. She carried a leather satchel in her hands and handed it to Adeena. The captain looked upon her furiously. "Madam, just as my sister is wont to do now, your late husband supported the rebels. Let me remind you that as a result of his foolishness my uncle lost not only his title, but this estate through attainment. It is I, dear aunt, a loyal member of His Majesty's Parliament in London, and not you, who have legitimate claim to Kinnaird." "That is yet to be settled," Lady Margaret retorted. John St. Clair stepped to her side, and she turned to him. "Please, take Lady Catherine with you, Master John, far away from the arrogant stench standing before me." St. Clair moved forward, but the captain intervened. "Stay where you are, St. Clair, or you will be charged with treason too." St. Clair ignored the captain and moved toward the door. Adeena tried to follow. The captain blocked their path. "What do you carry there, sister?" he demanded, looking at the satchel she held closely against her bosom. "Something you took from me," she snapped. He lunged towards her, grabbing the satchel and trying to wring it from her. They struggled as the captain tried to pull it away. "Give it to me, you traitor!" he shouted. Adeena refused to release her grip on the leather package until the captain reached for her neck. With one strong hand he began choking her until, gasping, she let go, releasing the satchel to him. St. Clair tried to intervene and pushed the captain, still clutching the satchel in one hand, down to the floor. The captain tried to get up, but St. Clair pinned him to the floor with a heavy boot. "Let me go," the captain hissed. St. Clair pushed down harder as the captain lay trapped on the wooden floor in front of the hearth. "Give that to me," St. Clair said, pointing to the leather satchel, "or I'll show you the mark a Scottish boot leaves on a coward's face." The captain smiled. "I always knew you to be a traitor, and soon will be fitting the noose round your neck." He held up the leather satchel. "Is this what you want?" But before St. Clair could reach it, the captain flung the satchel into the flames of the fireplace. Tara watched as Adeena sat back down in her chair. The audience, unable to restrain themselves any longer, exploded in applause and cheering, breaking all the rules of orchestral decorum. Adeena seemed unaffected, with only a blank expression on her face. Tara thought she looked as if she were hypnotized, even as she lifted the Duncan cello and began to play, leading the other cellists. The policeman standing beside Tara whispered something in her ear. "No, wait," she replied. The leather satchel sat in the dying fire with smoke beginning to rise from it. Adeena raced towards the hearth and tried to save it from catching fire. Just as she was about to grab the satchel, the captain pushed John St. Clair's boot off him and grabbed a fistful of Adeena's long copper hair. She recoiled and tried to push him away. "Let it burn!" the captain shouted. Adeena turned and spat at him. "Let go of me, fuckhead!" As the two struggled, St. Clair swung his arm against the captain, knocking him away. Adeena broke free from her captor as the captain slowly rose to face St. Clair. She reached into the fire and pulled out the smoking satchel, just as flames were about to engulf it. St. Clair stood guard in front of her as the captain again tried to lunge towards her. This time St. Clair grabbed him, and the two men went at each other fiercely. The captain was getting the better of St. Clair and finally broke free. He headed towards Adeena, and just before he was about to grab her, Lady Margaret, who had removed a wooden shield from the trophy wall, brought it down hard on her nephew's head. He staggered, stopped momentarily. "Damn you! Damn all of you!" But the captain would not be contained so easily, and he tried again to reach Adeena. This time his face met St. Clair's fist with a knock-out punch. Lady Margaret rushed towards Adeena. "Did you save it? The music?" Adeena opened the smouldering satchel and pulled out the score. "Yes, just in time," she said, looking over the papers, warm to her touch. "I need you to get this published before we lose it again." She handed them to St. Clair. He looked at the papers, turning a few pages. "There is no title, no author. You cannot publish it like this." Lady Margaret pointed to a table where she had been writing letters to her solicitor. "John, give me those papers." He handed them to her, and she sat, quill in hand. "Now, Lady Catherine, what do you call your music?" John St. Clair tucked the score into his sack for the long ride to Edinburgh. His wife had added the missing cover page in her scrolling calligraphic style. "Song for a Lost Kingdom, Catherine Carnegie, 15 December, 1745. St. Clair flew from Kinnaird on his way to the capital. This time nothing would stop him from reaching his goal. Adeena felt her head spinning. She was caught between two worlds, and both struggled for possession of her mind and body. Her eyes still closed. She reached the end of the section as the orchestra launched into the rest of the score. She stood up, trying to focus, unable to understand where or when she was. She took a few steps forward, and then fell from the front of the stage of Southam Hall onto the people seated below.